We are just about one moment away from the beginning of the funeral service for former President Jimmy Carter, and there we have aligned the surviving presidents. There's only been 45 in our nation's history, coming up on 45 anyway, in about 7 or 8 days from now. When we were watching this during the commercial break, and Dana, we were both observing that Donald Trump and Barack Obama have a lot to say to each other.
Yeah, they're having a
because they sure were.
I'm sure the lip readers will try to get a hold of that, but it is a chance for the President's Club. Unfortunately, sometimes you have to get together for a funeral, but this is in tribute to the former president, Jimmy Carter, who will be laid to rest later today. But the funeral first at the National Cathedral, which will be a beautiful ceremony covered in full on Fox Business.
Think about this picture now. Kamala Harris there, Hillary Clinton. Bill Clinton was just in the hospital and looks no worse for the wear. They had a close-up shot of him a moment ago, and he looks good, and he looks healthy, and together they come together, and, well, they will honor the 39th president, and Joe Biden, the current president, will help deliver the eulogy, and we will certainly be available for that, to listen to his message today in Washington.
All right, and here we have the President of the United States, Joe Biden, and First Lady Jill Biden arriving into the National Cathedral for the beginning of this service. So we must be about to get underway as they take their seats. It's
a stunning place, whether there's a ceremony underway or not. Just a beautiful place in Washington, D.C. To visit and take some quiet time out. And we have watched so many moments together over the past several decades, where the nation has paused to recognize moments in American history, and today this is yet another one of those.
It is a momentous day in America. I mean, we have the breaking news out of Los Angeles. Hunter Biden, we saw just a few moments ago, apparently there was reports that his house is burned down there as well. Al Gore, former vice president as well, is there. Many of them had been a part of, at least in some way, Habitat for Humanity, one of the beautiful organizations that Jimmy Carter helped found in his post-presidency.
So there will be several tributes. I mentioned Joe Biden will deliver one of them. In a bit of an ironic twist here, in presidential history, some of the other tributes will be delivered by Steve Ford, who is the son of the late President Gerald Ford. Gerald Ford wrote a tribute to Jimmy Carter. They forged a friendship together in that presidential club, and Steve Ford will deliver that. No one's heard it yet. This will be the first time publicly. And then Ted Mondale will read a letter that was written by his father and the former Vice President Walter Mondale today.
You will also hear from James Carter. He is one of the many grandsons of President Carter, and Joshua Carter as well, and Jason Carter. So Jason, Joshua, and James, all grandchildren of President Carter, will have a chance to pay tribute to their late grandfather, who, and no doubt they loved very much.
The Honorable Andrew Young out of Atlanta, Georgia, is also there today, and I was watching him the other day in an interview and talking about his memories of Jimmy Carter, not just as a president, but also as a governor before he went to Washington, D.C. And then the years that he spent in his post-presidency. Remember, he left the presidency, he was 45 years young, which he had a long runway after that. Went into hospice almost 2 years ago, and had survived a long time on hospice under great care as well. And Andrew Young will deliver the homily today, so his message will certainly be poignant. The other thing I'd point out is that the choir is so stunning, and the sounds are so beautiful. And we will hear the song Imagine, sung as a duet today by Garth Brooks and Trisha Yearwood. That's quite the pair.
It is certainly indeed. And the Carter family there, I believe that's who that is which was paying tribute there to and saying hello to President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden. Here we have Jimmy Carter, the late president, his casket about to be entered into the National Cathedral for the procession. Let's listen in here for a second.
This is quite the moment, and Dana, we remarked last hour, the last time we were there together was the funeral for George H.W. Bush, 41. And the memory I have from that day, not only was it cold like it is today, but how his son, 43, was leading the way for the family and his father into church that day.
And I remember his speech very well, and remember how stoic he was through the whole thing until the very end, because that was obviously a huge loss. They were very close, and the whole family was there as well. We have noticed that Barack Obama and it's President-elect Trump, I was going to say former President, but also President-elect Trump, having a chance to catch up there as they sit next to each other.
There are 11 pallbearers. All of them are Jimmy Carter's grandchildren. Some of them considered honorary, some will have a hand on the casket as it goes into the National Cathedral. And Brett Baer is still riding shotgun with us today. And Brett, we're kind of balancing a lot of stories today, and appreciate you coming back here. Think about Carter's life, U.S. Naval Academy, Annapolis, growing up on a peanut farm in Georgia, and then the time that he spent as president, very controversial, I would argue. You think about when his term in office ended and the American hostages who were held in Tehran for 444 days were released, and Ronald Reagan on January 20th, that day in 1981, ushered in a whole new era in American life. And even if you think about today, and if you open the New York Times, there is a long article today about how Democratic politicians, since Jimmy Carter, have had to defend their own service to America, their own commitment to strength. And they point out exclusively how Hillary Clinton repeatedly used the word strong and strength when she was trying to capture the White House in 2016. And the legacy of Jimmy Carter, for some, is a very complicated one, not just as president, but in his post-presidency also.
America usually does give a second chance to their presidents in terms of re-election, Brett. In Jimmy Carter's case, and then, of course, in Joe Biden's. Not the case in President-elect Trump coming back for a second term.
As you look at that image of the living presidents, you know, these are moments. They only happen every so often, as you mentioned, 2018, the last time. And I think one of the things about Carter's legacy, and we can talk about all the policies and we can talk about the criticism, but there was also this humility, this sense after Watergate and Vietnam that that's what the country wanted. He was not afraid to talk about his faith. And he was a very religious man, an evangelical Baptist. He talked about being a born-again Christian on the campaign trail. And I think you'll hear a lot of that in this service today, looking back at how solid a religious man he was, and he wasn't afraid to talk about it.
Brett, when you look at the presidents assembled here, Donald Trump, the cameras were on him almost exclusively from every network as he entered church a moment ago. And Dana and I were talking about how much he and Barack Obama had to talk about. And maybe we need to get a good lip reader in here to tell us what that conversation was all about, Brett.
Yeah, and you know, it's just stark. You see Vice President Harris there in the front row, and obviously Barack Obama and all that happened in the election and all that was said in the election. But these moments go past the politics. This is about honoring one of a very small group of people who've been president of the United States. And it only happens every so often as you look at the president and the vice president there.
And in 11 days, they will gather again, Brett.
They'll gather again for the inauguration. And there are all kinds of things. But America, like America did in 1981, is turning the page from Joe Biden to President-elect Trump, soon to be President Trump, like it did from Jimmy Carter to Ronald Reagan. It's a big shift.
But one thing also I would add is, I'm reminded of when Obama came in, as we watched the casket come into the National Cathedral there. You know, America shows the world over and over again that we might have really tough campaigns and there might be some really strong words said against each other, but we can come together like this over and over, unlike most other countries in the world.
Just look at this picture here, Dana. Screen left, you got Al Gore. Right in front of me, you got George Bush. They fought it out for 37 days in Tallahassee in late 2000. Next to Al Gore is Mike Pence, who has distanced himself considerably from his former boss, Donald Trump. And in front of Donald Trump is Doug Emhoff and his wife, Kamala Harris, who were just vanquished in November. And I just, Brett, I mean, to Dana's point, this is quite remarkable. And it's one of those moments when people say, this is what makes America great. You know, these people compete at a political level. They have very strong differences in how they believe the country should be run and what sort of force we should be around the world. But at least for this moment, for this day, they are, they're like fraternity brothers, Dana. The way they look at each other and smile as you see Trump and Obama in the picture there.